Executive presence is not a suit. It's not your posture. And it's definitely not that polished, slightly robotic version of leadership people perform when they want to look like a senior. Because here's the real test. What happens to you when the room gets tense? That's where presence shows up or disappears. And that matters because even mainstream research on executive presence shows gravitas is the core factor, while appearance is far less important. In one widely cited study, executive presence accounted for 26% of what it takes to get the next promotion, and 67% of senior executives said gravitas was the core characteristic. So if presence isn't mainly polish, what is it? Stay with me, because at the end, I'm going to give you one question that cuts through all the noise and tells you whether your presence is real or just well rehearsed. Hi, I'm Pietro Pazzi. I help senior executives transform their leadership from the inside out so they can manifest their true potential, navigate the complexity with clarity, and lead with strong impact and build the inner capacity their next level demands. Through integrating psychosynthesis with my 30 years of global leadership experience, we don't just work on behavior, we transform your inner operating system. In this video, I want to challenge a very common misunderstanding. A lot of people think executive presence means looking composed, sounding crisp, and saying the right things in the right tone. And yes, those things can help, but they are not the essence. Real presence is deeper than image. It is groundedness. It is congruence. And it is depth under pressure. So let's unpack that. The polished image version of executive presence is tempting, but it feels managed. Speak more slowly. Dress better. Make eye contact. Lower your voice a little. Fine, useful even perhaps. But those things are only the surface. The same executive presence research tells us something people often miss. Appearance was seen as a key factor by only 5% of leaders, while gravitas matters far more. And when they describe gravitas, they pointed to things like grace under fire, decisiveness, integrity, emotional intelligence, and projecting vision. That's a very different picture, isn't it? Not look the part, more like, can people feel that they are steady when it matters? I've seen leaders walk into a room looking immaculate, saying the right words, but the room doesn't relax around them. People feel cautious, tension, distance. Then I've seen another leader less polished, maybe less theatrical, but deeply settled in themselves. When they speak, people listen. When they pause, nobody panics. When they say, here's the difficult truth, the room can bear it. That's presence, not theater, not performance, but weight. My approach teaches coaching not just as a method, but as a way of being. It explicitly holds being and presence as an ever-present context, and it works with the whole person, the body, the feelings, the minds, the soul, the will. It also treats deeper listening as something that includes the body, its energies, the tone, your beliefs, your values, and what is emerging behind the words. That matters because leadership pressure is not just cognitive, it is physical. You can see it. A shallow breath, a tightened jaw, speech speeding up, shoulders lifting, attention narrowing. In other words, before a leader says anything, the nervous system is already speaking. That's why groundedness matters so much. And there's a decent amount of evidence on this. A systematic review and meta-analysis found that even brief mindfulness inductions improved regulation of negative effects and could help restore executive function performance more quickly, especially where stress was involved. So when I say executive presence is grounded, I don't mean something mystical. I mean this. Can you stay in your body when pressure rises? Can you notice yourself early enough to choose rather than just react? Can you stay connected to the floor, to your breath, to reality? Because when a leader loses that ground, the whole room feels it. This part most people underestimate. Congruence means there is a match between what you say and what people feel from you. Right relations depends on paying attention to the evidence of the senses rather than being driven by old assumptions, hidden agendas, or unconscious motivations. It describes congruence as the match between the content of the expression and the feeling or attitude underneath it. And it says that congruence opens the door to deeper honesty, trust, and contact. Put simply, if your words say calm, but your body says threat, people believe your body. If your message says care, but your energy says impatience, people feel the impatience. If you say, I'm open to challenge, but everyone senses you will punish dissent, then your executive presence is not presence, it is branding. And here the research gets interesting. A study on leader and organizational behavior integrity found that when leaders' actions were aligned with their stated intention, employees identified more strongly with the leader and the organization, and more positive follower behaviors followed. That is congruence in practice, not image management, alignment, real presence as a kind of inner coherence. People may not have the language for it, but they can feel it instantly. Now we get to the heart of it. Executive presence is not being unshakable. It's not never feeling fear. It's not never doubting yourself. It is not floating above the mess like some serene leadership statue. It is being able to stay in relationship with yourself, with others, with the system, and with purpose while pressure is moving through the room. I hold what is called the trifocal vision, the reality of who a person is now, the potential of who they are becoming, and the gap between the two. The work is to bridge the gap by finding the next realistic step and where their will is actually available. I love that because under pressure, presence is not about becoming superhuman. It's about staying human enough to choose the next step. And your state does not stay private. Research on mood contagion found that leaders' moods affect groups' moods as well, the organization's group and the processes within. Groups with leaders who embody authenticity showed more coordination and less effort expenditure than groups with leaders who were disconnected from themselves. So yes, your inner state travels, which means executive presence is not just about how you feel, it's about what happens around you because of how you are. Here's the question. When pressure rises, do you become more performative or more real? That's it. Real executive presence is not the ability to look calm. It is the capacity to become more grounded, more congruent, and more deeply yourself when the heat is on. That is the kind of presence people trust. That is the kind of presence that can hold complexity. And honestly, that is the kind of presence the world needs from leaders today. If this resonates and you want to develop that kind of leadership from the inside out, explore my leadership depth coaching at pietropazzi.com. And if you'd like to have a proper conversation about your own leadership edge, book a 30-minute complimentary exploratory chat with me through the links also on my website and in the description. Thanks so much for being here and for giving this your attention.